The story begins in the United States of America, at a federal prison surrounded by barbed wire fences. This is the start of Chapter 1. Inside, an inmate lies on his bunk. Meanwhile, in a guard tower, prison officers look down, aware that trouble is brewing among the prisoners. The setting is Lamp Park Prison, California, designated as Level 5, the most dangerous classification. In the crowded cafeteria, inmates whisper about the recent conflicts between the Crips and Chicanos. During mealtime, an inmate receives an extra portion of food. He thanks the server, but is watched by a bald, bearded inmate. The tension rises as the bearded man grips a hidden, sharpened object. As the man walks away with his food, he's suddenly stabbed multiple times in the back. He looks down in shock before collapsing to the ground. He hits the floor with a thud. The other prisoners, including one with sunglasses, watch the event unfold as if it were a common occurrence, commenting that it was bound to happen. A prison guard smirks, completely indifferent to the violence. The bearded assailant simply watches as his victim lies on the floor. Suddenly, the bearded assailant is himself attacked from behind. A hand clamps over his mouth, silencing him before he can react. The new attacker slams the man's face into his own food tray, causing his meal to splatter everywhere. With cold eyes, the attacker slits the bearded man's throat. The man chokes out a curse as he clutches the bleeding wound. The bearded man collapses onto the cafeteria floor with a heavy thud, surrounded by indifferent inmates. The attacker is revealed to be Kei, a man with long black hair. He looks down, feeling sick to his stomach. The other prisoners look on with amusement, identifying him as the perpetrator. Unfazed by the body lying next to him, Kei continues to eat his burger as if nothing has happened. After finishing his meal, Kei says a prayer of thanks. He then respectfully closes the eyes of the man he just killed. As guards complain about having to clean up another dead body, Kei is filled with a grim resolve. He silently vows that he's going to make it out of this prison alive. With a look of sheer determination, Kei declares to himself that there's no way he's dying in America, a country he doesn't even know. The story flashes back to his past. In his reckless youth, he was known as Kei and was a member of the Yakuza, surrounded by his comrades. Following an incident in Honolulu, Hawaii, Kei was taken into custody and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was then transferred to Lamp Park Prison, the highest danger level in the States, home to over 2,000 of the most violent criminals. Returning to the present, Kei stands behind bars. He explains that this is the story of how he survived in an American prison far from home, as the only Japanese inmate back in the 80s. Later, as Kei is walking through a corridor, another inmate calls out to him, using the term fish, a slang for a new prisoner. Two inmates approach him. One of them, a man with a goatee, asks if Kei is Chinese. From behind his sharp gaze, Kei corrects him, stating that he is Japanese. The man is surprised, saying he's met people from many countries but never a Japanese person. He extends his hand for a friendly handshake. The man introduces himself as Brian and his massive, stone-faced companion as Ian. Kei cautiously takes in the scene, noting Ian's huge size. Kei introduces himself. Brian, maintaining a friendly demeanor, offers him a smoke, and Kei decides to accept it. He thanks Brian and takes a light. As he smokes, Kei reflects on this small moment of calm, thinking to himself that while most guys in here are tense, there are also seemingly relaxed people like Brian. Enjoying the cigarette, Kei remarks on how good it is. He reflects that people in Japan might find it hard to believe, but American prisons have stores where inmates could buy essentials, and back in his day, they even used cash. Kei's internal monologue continues. He was shocked by how much free time inmates had, which they used for weight training, sports, and playing card games. Brian suggests they play cards, inviting Kei to a game with stakes. As Brian and Ian lead him down a hallway, Kei tells them to stop crowding him. As they walk, Brian casually asks Kei how he ended up with a 10-year sentence. Kei cryptically replies that a lot happened. Brian warns Kei that being a lone Japanese inmate is dangerous and that he needs to join a group to survive, mentioning a Cuban inmate who didn't last 3 days. Kei privately thinks that Brian talks too much. Kei's suspicion grows. He realizes that they've led him to an isolated, empty room, not a place where they'd play cards. His fears are confirmed when he turns around. Brian's friendly expression has vanished, replaced by a sinister smirk. The trap has been sprung. The massive Ian grabs Kei from behind, locking him in a chokehold. Brian's true intentions are revealed as he drops the friendly act and demands, "Pay up, man." Kei curses himself internally, realizing he had a bad feeling from the start. He feels like an idiot for falling for such a simple trick, especially after listening to Brian's endless chatter. As Ian tightens his grip, Kei is shocked by his immense strength. He struggles, but he can't budge Ian's arms at all. Brian mocks Kei, telling him to just hand over the cash. He insults him, saying that with his skinny French fry arms, he can't do anything. As Brian orders Ian to finish this guy off, Kei realizes that a weak spot is the same no matter where you are in the world. Sweating and under pressure, Kei feels the situation is bad. Brian continues to taunt him, mockingly asking about the samurai in Tokyo. With a surge of defiance, Kei opens his mouth and bites down hard on Ian's arm, drawing blood. While Ian is stunned from the bite, Kei follows up by stomping his foot down hard on top of Ian's. Ian cries out in pain. Kei, now free from his grasp, smirks and asks, "Hurts, doesn't it?" The two face off. With a chilling look in his eyes, Kei asks if they really thought they could underestimate a Japanese man. Ian, enraged, charges forward. Kei clenches his fist, ready to meet the attack head-on. Kei unleashes a powerful, lightning-fast punch that connects squarely with Ian's torso. The blow sends a shockwave through Ian's body. Brian looks on in disbelief, shocked at the power hidden in Kei's physique. Kei easily dodges a clumsy swing from the injured Ian and delivers another brutal punch to his side. As Brian watches, stunned that Kei is completely unfazed by Ian's attacks, Kei thinks to himself that this fight would have been over long ago back in Japan. Using Ian's size and momentum against him, Kei executes a perfect martial arts throw, sending the larger man flying through the air. Ian crashes to the floor. Dazed and defeated, he can only lie there as Kei stands over him. With Ian defenseless on the ground, Kei unleashes a merciless barrage of punches, brutally beating him into submission as Brian watches with a stunned expression. After the brutal fight, Kei retrieves the wad of cash he was supposed to pay. He then collapses onto the floor, exhausted but victorious. Later, as Brian stands over the beaten Ian, he remarks with a newfound respect, "Damn, Japanese dudes are tough." Lying on the ground, Kei reflects on the brutal reality of the prison. He understands that if you are perceived as weak, you're finished. His internal monologue continues, realizing that showing weakness means other inmates will prey on you for your entire sentence. With renewed determination, Kei gets to his feet, tearing off his shirt to reveal his full-body Yakuza tattoos. He declares that in this place, the weak don't survive. A detailed view shows his intricate tattoos, featuring a fierce dragon on one side and bamboo on the other. Beaten but not broken, Kei understands the nature of this place and prepares for his next move. He sees the prison for what it is, a world where you must kill or be killed. Flashing back to the fight, we see the moment Kei bit into Ian's arm with ferocious intensity. Kei licks the blood from his lips, a chilling display of the ferocity he's willing to unleash to survive. The fight continues in his memory, with Kei landing a powerful blow on the much larger Ian. Another shot shows Kei relentlessly punching his opponent. After the fight, with Ian defeated, Kei coolly uses a toothpick, a sign of his complete dominance. He comes to a firm conclusion. The only way he is going to make it through this is to keep fighting no matter what. Back in the present, Ian lies unconscious on the floor. A terrified Brian quickly tells Kei to calm down and says he'll give the money back. Impressed, Brian calls him Kei, the samurai boy, and offers him membership in their gang, the Crips. Kei appears to consider the offer for a moment. Kei rejects the offer violently, punching Brian in the face and shouting, "Like hell I would, you idiot." He then throws the money down at him. Sprawled on the ground, a dazed Brian asks what he's doing, completely bewildered by Kei's actions. Kei explains with cold intensity that the money is payment for the cigarette. He always makes sure to pay back his debts. Brian, stunned, asks if all Japanese people are this crazy. Kei retorts that it's called having integrity. Just then, a guard arrives, and Brian panics, realizing they'll be sent to solitary confinement if they're caught. Thinking fast, Kei pulls his shirt back on to hide his tattoos and immediately drops to the floor, doing push-ups as if exercising. He introduces himself. "My name is Kei. My profession? Yakuza." Later, wearing a tank top after a workout, Kei wonders if he can get protein in the prison, reaffirming his status as the sole Japanese inmate. The story transitions to the title card for Chapter 2, set again in Rampart State Prison, California. The story flashes back to the moment of his transfer. A guard patrols the corridors as Kei recounts being arrested in Honolulu, Hawaii, because of a certain incident. A guard addresses him directly, ordering him out of a temporary cell. From that day on, he was in general population at Rampart State Prison, a facility holding 2,000 of the most dangerous criminals, their final destination. The scene resets, reintroducing the protagonist as he sits on his bunk. "My name is Kei." Kei narrates that back in the 80s, he had to fight to survive as the only Japanese inmate. In the background, the daily violence of the prison continues as another fight breaks out. An inmate is brutally knocked out. Watching from a distance, Kei coldly notes to himself that the man is done for. With a grim expression, Kei acknowledges the finality of defeat in this place. He reflects on his own recent victory, admitting that the only reason he survived was pure luck. Kei observes the body of an inmate who has died from a heroin overdose. He concludes that the only way to truly survive in here is to avoid trouble altogether. Walking past the deceased inmate, Kei narrates that fights and drugs kill around 10 people every month. He lives every day with the thought that he might be next. In the large, open dormitory, Kei makes his bunk. He eyes the other inmates warily, aware of the constant danger. He watches as other inmates pair up. The pressure is on. He realizes today is his last day to find a cellmate. The system is explained. New inmates spend a week in a large dorm, during which time they must find someone willing to be their cellmate, as cells are assigned to 2 people. This system helps prevent incidents by keeping rival gang members separated. But more than anything, to survive a long prison sentence, it's best to have a cellmate you can get along with. An inmate's hand is shown, holding a metal lighter. He expertly flips the lighter open, revealing a large cross engraved on its side. A new, influential figure is introduced. With a handsome face and eyes as cold and sharp as a hawk's, another inmate identifies him as Romulo. He surveys the prison yard while smoking a cigarette. A full view shows Romulo's imposing presence. He's clad in a skull t-shirt and has intricate tattoos covering his arms, marking him as a man of status. Elsewhere in the yard, an inmate celebrates winning a hand of cards with a 3 of a kind. It turns out Romulo's associate is the one who won. The man who lost slams his fist on the table in frustration. The losing players are confused as Romulo's man slams his hand down on the winnings, claiming them. Romulo himself arrives at the table, announcing that he's there to collect a debt. Romulo counts the money and finds it lacking. He tells the debtor, an inmate named Kareem, that he'll let it slide if he adds his pack of cigarettes. Kareem panics and tries to run. Before Kareem can get away, Romulo instantly strikes, landing a brutal punch to his face. Romulo grabs Kareem, twisting his ear viciously and causing him to scream in pain. He coldly informs Kareem that for Chicanos, orders from the top are absolute. He reminds Kareem that his orders were to kill him if he didn't pay. This harsh discipline is a glimpse into the prison's rigid power structure. Here, Chicanos, Mexican Americans, form a powerful gang, and for them, orders from the top are absolute. Finally broken, a terrified Kareem hands over the money and cigarettes. He apologizes to Romulo, knowing his leader had been covering for him. Romulo accepts the payment silently, his cold stare implying this lesson isn't over yet. Back in his cell, Romulo gives Kareem a lecture. He tells him that even though he knows Kareem is soft-hearted, in prison he is a Chicano and needs to act like a man. Romulo continues his lesson, telling the nervous newcomer that once others think you're weak, you're done for. He offers Kareem the pack of cigarettes he just confiscated, calling it tuition for his survival lesson. Kareem gratefully accepts, thanking Romulo, who gives him a friendly smile and tells him to toughen up. The scene shifts. It's count time, and a guard is taking roll call, counting the inmates lined up in the hall, including Kei. The guard seems frustrated. Just as he thought, there's a problem with the count as he points toward number 43, Kei. A guard reports to his superior that after a recount, there's still one inmate short. The narration explains that roll call happens several times a day, but the 4 p.m. count is the most strict. The guards get impatient, as they can't finish until everyone is accounted for. Finally, the missing inmate is found, dragged in by 2 guards. Count time is a synchronized roll call across all U.S. federal prisons and doesn't end until every single inmate is accounted for, no exceptions. The guards confirm the inmate was knocked out in the laundry room. With the count complete, they dismiss everyone. Kei reflects that the guards don't care if you're alive or dead, as long as the numbers add up, and that this process can sometimes last all night. Kei gets a canned soda from a vending machine, a small moment of normalcy in the harsh prison environment. He narrates that besides the main cafeteria, inmates had access to areas with vending machines, microwaves, and hot water dispensers, allowing them to cook simple meals for themselves. In one of these common areas, Kei, carrying his food tray, finds his path blocked by Romulo and his crew. Romulo, flanked by his associate Juan, coldly tells Kei that he was there first and to find a seat somewhere else. The 2 men lock eyes, a silent, intense confrontation beginning to brew. Kei reminds himself to avoid trouble, but Romulo provokes him, calling him a China boy and asking if he wants to fight. Kei angrily corrects him, stating he's Japanese, but tries to hold back from starting a fight. Romulo smirks, calling Kei a coward who is just trying to survive. However, Juan notices Kei's posture and warns Romulo that the homie is ready to fight. A wild, menacing grin spreads across Kei's face, a clear sign that his patience is wearing thin. Kei struggles internally, telling himself to let them talk and to stay out of trouble, no matter what. Romulo tells Juan to stop, but Juan calls Kei a coward and deliberately shoulder checks him, taunting him with later, China boy, and knocking his food tray. As his food tray clatters to the floor, Kei finally snaps. He spins around and launches a powerful kick at the smug Juan. Romulo looks on, surprised by the sudden violence, and declares that they are Chicanos, asking Kei if he understands what that implies. Kei, now furious, shouts back that he doesn't know any Chicanos and yells, "For the record, I'm Japanese, damn it." The 2 stand face to face, the tension at its peak. Kei's narration concludes that their first encounter was a complete disaster. The tension shatters as onlookers murmur in shock, realizing Kei has just picked a fight with a powerful Chicano. Their disastrous first encounter has now exploded into open conflict. Romulo is the first to act, throwing a swift punch. But Kei ducks under the attack with practiced ease and immediately fires back with a hard counter, putting all his force behind the blow. Kei's counterpunch lands squarely. He narrates that from this disastrous encounter on, he would become deeply involved with the Chicanos, setting the stage for the next chapter of his survival. The story takes us to the United States of America, inside the fortified walls of Rampart Prison, a place where only the strongest survive. The tension inside is palpable. A Chicano gang leader eyes the room with cold indifference, his authority undisputed. Meanwhile, 2 guards gossip among themselves, completely ignoring the brewing storm. In the middle of the prison cafeteria, a fight erupts. Inmates form a circle to watch the spectacle, as guards observe passively from a distance. A long-haired inmate cries out in frustration as he's mercilessly pummeled, unable to defend himself against the brutal onslaught. The attacker, a man with blonde hair and tattoos, continues his relentless assault, landing a heavy blow that sends his victim staggering. A powerful punch sends the long-haired man flying. He's completely outmatched, lamenting that he can't even get a single hit in against his formidable opponent. The onlookers comment on the one-sided brawl. The attacker is identified as Romulo, and they remark that the other guy, referred to as that Chinese guy, was all bark and no bite. It's revealed that Romulo is a former pro boxer, which explains his overwhelming skill as he continues to land devastating blows. The guards watch with detached amusement. One asks if they should step in, but his partner cynically replies that if the inmate dies, it's just less paperwork for them. One of the guards mockingly suggests they go watch the fight from ringside. The scene then shifts to a dark, desolate view of the prison at night, emphasizing its isolation. Back in the cafeteria, the brutal beatdown continues as Romulo lands yet another clean, powerful punch to his opponent's face. The Chicano gang leader is shocked. He can't believe the Chinese dude is still standing after taking so many hits from Romulo, noting that he's never seen anyone endure such a beating. Even Romulo himself is taken aback, wondering how his opponent is possibly still on his feet after the punishment he's delivered. Romulo acknowledges his opponent's stubbornness and guts, commenting on his one tough jaw before winding up for another punch. With a grim determination, Romulo declares, "This ends now," as he moves in to deliver a finishing blow to his resilient foe. Romulo delivers a crushing liver blow, a classic boxer's move designed to take anyone down, causing the long-haired inmate to finally collapse to his knees. With his opponent on the ground, Romulo looks on with a smug, satisfied smirk, believing the fight to be over. The long-haired inmate falls to the floor, seemingly defeated. As the crowd watches, a hand reaches out, ready for what's next. Against all odds, the battered inmate struggles back to his feet, defiantly gesturing to Romulo and shouting, "Bring it on." Watching from the sidelines, Kei, the Japanese ex-Yakuza, scoffs. "What an idiot," he thinks. "You could have finished me off while I was still down." It seems he's putting himself in the fighter's shoes. Romulo is about to re-engage, but Kei steps forward, expressing his distaste for bullies like Romulo. The tension in the room shifts as a new confrontation begins. Suddenly, an inmate runs and shouting for help, announcing that someone named Kareem has been taken out. Romulo tries to dismiss him, saying he's busy. Kei is surprised by the news. Romulo and his second-in-command are stunned, asking what? Realizing the situation has escalated beyond their control. The messenger frantically explains that Kareem is badly hurt and urges them to hurry. As Romulo is pulled away by the urgency of the situation, he pauses to glare back at Kei, making it clear their fight isn't over yet. With the immediate confrontation defused, the guards step in to separate them. Romulo departs with his crew, leaving Kei with a final, tense stare down, a silent promise of future conflict that now hangs heavy in the air. Kei looks at the long-haired inmate he just saved, who can only think of Japan. Kei tells him he'll settle things properly later, making a promise. The long-haired inmate agrees with a grimace, but warns Kei not to forget their deal, hinting at a prior arrangement between them. As Romulo's gang walks away, they grumble that the confrontation was just getting good. The long-haired inmate finally lets out a breath of relief, the immediate danger having passed. He looks down at his spilled meal on the dirty floor, annoyed that his food was wasted during the brawl. His mind flashes back to the moment he was sent flying by Romulo's punch, the tray of food knocked from the table. Meanwhile, Kei examines a Zippo lighter, flicking it open. He notes the nice sound it makes, a sign that it's been well maintained. Kei places the lighter on the table and with a swift motion, snaps it shut. It seems this object holds some significance. The deal is revealed in a flashback. Before the fight, other inmates were mocking the long-haired man's kung fu. He then saw Kei from Japan and his Zippo lighter on the table, which became the subject of their wager. Back in the present, the long-haired inmate clenches his fist, looking down with a sense of shame and regret, wondering what he's even doing with his life. The scene shifts to a makeshift infirmary where Kei and other inmates are gathered around the brutally beaten Kareem, lying unconscious on a cot. They assess Kareem's injuries, a busted arm and leg, plus broken ribs. One of them questions why he isn't in the hospital and says they're arranging for a guard to take him. Kei demands to know who did this to Kareem. Romulo's associate claims ignorance, saying they just found him lying at the edge of the yard. Not buying the act, Kei turns his cold gaze directly to Romulo's associate, pointedly asking him again if he has any idea who the culprit is. Kei presses further, revealing that he knows Romulo and Kareem grew up together, implying Romulo should have some information. Unwilling to act, the other inmates decide to wait for orders from their higher-ups. Tired of their inaction, Kei declares that he can't drag them into this. He takes full ownership of the situation, stating that settling the score for Kareem is now his personal responsibility. True to his word, Kei seeks out Romulo's crew and confronts them directly, standing alone before the hostile group. One of Romulo's men, a goateed inmate, smugly reveals a wad of bloody cash, confessing that he already took the money back from Kareem, confirming their guilt. Kei's expression hardens as the truth sinks in. With a look of cold fury, he realizes so is you guys. The goateed man taunts Kei for coming alone and invites him to follow. Another inmate reveals a hidden knife, advising Kei not to run. Unfazed, Kei retorts, "Hell no. I've been looking for you." Elsewhere, in the relative quiet of the cells, the long-haired inmate touches his swollen, bruised face, the sting of his defeat still fresh. He reflects on his loss, admitting that Romulo, a former pro boxer, didn't hold back. But his pride remains, and he vows that in a real, no-holds-barred fight, he won't lose. He sighs, lamenting that trouble always seems to find him. Resigned, he decides to go take a shower, seeking a moment of peace. With a heavy heart and a bruised body, the long-haired inmate makes his way down the bleak prison corridor, lost in his thoughts. The scene shifts back to the hallway, where Kei now stands before Romulo and his entire gang. The trap is set, and Kei is the willing prey, a lone warrior facing down a formidable pack. At that exact moment, the long-haired inmate, whom Kei had saved earlier, turns the corner. He stops dead in his tracks, his eyes widening in shock as he witnesses Kei willingly walking into a one-sided battle. The long-haired inmate watches from a distance as Kei and Romulo's gang walk down the desolate corridor, a silent procession heading towards an inevitable, violent confrontation. With an unwavering, determined gaze, Kei leads the way, fully aware of the danger he is walking into but showing no signs of fear. The long-haired inmate, unable to just stand by, decides to follow them. He exchanges a brief, silent glance with Kei, a mutual understanding passing between them before he continues on his own path, a determined look on his face. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. As they walk, one of Romulo's men keeps a hand on a concealed blade, a stark reminder of how deadly this encounter could become. Watching the group disappear down the hall, the long-haired inmate, along with another, understands what's happening. He simply says, "I see," accepting the grim reality of the situation. A corrupt guard explains the situation to Kei's followers, telling them there are already too many people in the yard, forcing the confrontation to be moved to a more secluded area. The goateed inmate complains about the risk, but it's all for show. The guard's loyalty is easily bought with a wad of cash, a common transaction in this lawless place. With the bribe paid, the guard unlocks a gate, allowing Kei and the gang to pass into a closed-off section of the prison, telling them not to cause too much trouble. Under the pale moonlight, Romulo's gang prepares for battle. They stand ready, now armed with pipes and makeshift weapons, confident in their numbers. The bald, goateed inmate who led the attack on Kareem scoffs at Kei, mocking him for his foolish bravery. "You really came alone," he sneers. "What are you, Rambo?" Surrounded and heavily outnumbered, Kei faces the entire armed gang. He calmly warns them, "I'll make you regret laying a hand on a Chicano." The gang members erupt in sarcastic laughter, pretending to be terrified. Elsewhere, watching from the shadows, the long-haired inmate looks up at the sky, noting that the moon in California is no different from the one in Japan. Clutching a knife of his own, The long-haired inmate admits to himself that after witnessing Kei's resolve, he couldn't just walk away. He had to follow. The long-haired inmate complains to himself about the corrupt guard ripping them off, confirming that he also had to pay a bribe to get through the gate. The goateed man lays out the new prison order for Romulo. He says in here, the strongest decide what's right, and his gang, the Border Brothers, are no longer the underdogs. He reveals their newfound power comes from an alliance they've formed with another powerful faction, the Pazes. The complex web of prison politics is explained. Chicano's, Border Brothers, and Pazes are all rival Mexican-affiliated gangs. The long-haired inmate and Kei listen, processing this critical new information. The goateed man declares that their time is now. He coldly informs Romulo that the attack on Kareem was a warning, payback for Kareem ratting them out. He admits he hadn't planned to mess Kareem up so badly, but as he was hitting him, his anger took over and he beat him to a pulp, crushing his cigarette underfoot to emphasize his lack of remorse. With sickening pleasure, he describes how Kareem was crawling on the ground, calling out Romulo's name. Hearing this, Kei's anger boils over, thinking that if he was going to be beaten so badly, it would have been better to be put out of his misery. His patience gone, Kei radiates pure menace. He looks over the gang and issues a challenge. It doesn't matter. I'll take on every single one of you fools. Who wants to be the first one to get their face smashed? With a roar of "Get him!" the bald inmate gives the order, and the entire gang, armed and enraged, charges forward as one. The yard erupts into a chaotic brawl. Kei is immediately swallowed by the mob, fighting for his life against impossible odds. Despite being surrounded, Kei unleashes his Yakuza training, landing a vicious, bone-shattering punch on one of his attackers. The long-haired inmate watches in awe. Kei's strength is unreal. He's taking them all out by himself. Fueled by a thirst for vengeance, Kei thinks, "Forgive me, Kareem," as he prepares to dish out more punishment. In the heat of the fight, Kei is racked with guilt. He realizes there was never an official order to attack him. It was a random act. If he hadn't interfered in the cafeteria brawl, Kareem would never have been targeted. The weight of this responsibility crushes him. The gang's leader watches Kei's furious rampage. He clenches his tattooed fist, determined not to let this slight go unpunished, as Kei continues to tear through his men. Even as his men fall, the leader's resolve only hardens. He glares at Kei with a look of cold fury, vowing that he won't get away. But the numbers are just too great. The relentless assault from all sides finally begins to wear Kei down, and the gang members start to overpower him. Seeing their chance, the leader screams, "Now, grab him!" His men finally manage to restrain the struggling Kei, bringing his one-man assault to a halt. One of the thugs smashes a baseball bat against Kei's leg, trying to cripple him. Seeing this, the leader roars, "Give me that," wanting to deliver the final blow himself. Kei cries out in agony as a heavy stomp lands on his already injured leg, while another bat swing slams into his back. A baseball bat whistles through the air, aimed directly at Kei's head. From his hiding spot, the long-haired inmate watches in horror, sweating as the final brutal blow is about to land. The goateed leader takes the bat and swings with all his might, putting the full force of his body into a devastating strike meant to end Kei's life. Even now, battered and on the verge of collapse, Kei is not finished. He musters the last of his strength for one final, desperate act of defiance. With incredible speed and strength, Kei catches the leader's arm just as the bat is about to connect, his iron grip stopping the deadly weapon in its tracks. For a split second, the leader's smug confidence vanishes, replaced by genuine shock and fear. He lets out a nervous laugh, realizing how close he came to being overpowered. But his final act of defiance was his last. Kei collapses to the ground, utterly defeated. Watching from the shadows, the long-haired inmate seethes with anger, thinking, "Those bastards, they went way too far." The long-haired inmate tries to convince himself to leave. "The fight is over anyway," he mutters, turning his back. "Whatever, it's none of my business." But he can't leave. He looks back as the gang leader stands over Kei's body and mistakenly declares, "Romulo, this is where you die," revealing his true target. The leader pulls out a vicious, flame-shaped shiv, boasting that a single cut from the blade is enough to rip a man's guts to shreds. They haul the semi-conscious Kei to his feet. The leader promises to make his death slow and painful, a message to all his rivals. He holds the blade to Kei's face, gloating that killing a high-ranked specimen like Romulo will boost his gang's reputation. But just as he's about to strike, he's interrupted by an unfamiliar voice. Suddenly, the long-haired inmate appears, shirtless, revealing a full back of Yakuza tattoos. Playing dumb, he declares, "I lost," and asks where the shower room is, disrupting the execution. The gang is completely thrown off. What now? The leader wonders. The long-haired inmate just smiles, while Kei watches, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. One of the gang members angrily confronts the newcomer, calling him Chinaman. But the inmate just plays along, feigning a language barrier. "Sorry, English not very understand." The act is dropped in a flash. The long-haired inmate unleashes a devastating punch, flooring the gang member who confronted him. The others look on in shock, realizing they've made a grave mistake. With his allegiances now clear, he roars, "First of all, I'm Japanese, you idiot. Come at me." He reveals his full Yakuza back piece, declaring that while he knew the danger, he couldn't just stand by and do nothing. An ally has entered the fight. In the middle of the chaotic prison yard, a full-blown riot is underway. Amid the violence, Romulo, a formidable Chicano inmate, stands firm against a massive crowd of prisoners rushing towards him. Off-panel, the Japanese inmate, Kei, has provoked their wrath, and Romulo has stepped in to face them down. Romulo lets out a puff of air, his expression one of utter disdain and boredom, completely unfazed by the horde of angry inmates charging at him. As the fight erupts, Romulo moves with brutal efficiency. He effortlessly deflects an incoming punch with one arm, while simultaneously driving his other fist into his attacker's gut. Another inmate comes at Kei, who, despite his injuries, grabs the man by the neck and furiously shouts, "Get lost," as he shoves him away. Kei continues to fight back against the attackers. Elsewhere, one of the inmates who was beaten down by Kei is helped by his friends, who look on in disbelief, wondering, what the hell is with that guy? A close-up shows Kei's determined face, dirt-stained and weary, but filled with an unyielding fighting spirit as he glares at his opponents. Kei unleashes a flurry of attacks, punching one inmate in the face while kicking another, demonstrating incredible speed and ferocity. As Kei continues his relentless assault, an inmate shouts for his allies to hold Kei down, but they are unable to stop his rampage. A bald, bearded inmate watches the chaos unfold, stunned by Kei's power. He can't believe how Kei is able to move so fiercely, especially considering he's already injured. Kei pauses for a moment, sweating and breathing heavily, but his eyes still burn with intensity. The bald inmate, meanwhile, furiously screams at his men, "What are you guys doing?" as they fail to subdue the lone fighter. Despite being heavily outnumbered, Kei single-handedly takes on the entire group, knocking them down one by one as the bald leader watches in shock. The brutal fight continues. Kei takes a punch to the face and steps on an opponent's foot, but he remains standing, his gaze fixed and unwavering. Meanwhile, Romulo is also engaged in the brawl, coolly dispatching an attacker with a sharp elbow strike to the face, exclaiming "TCH" in annoyance. Romulo effortlessly dodges a punch from another inmate, who smirks confidently, unaware of how outmatched he truly is. The inmate's follow-up attack is completely ineffective. Romulo takes the hit without flinching, his face bloody but his expression completely stoic as he coldly states, "That didn't do shit." Romulo takes a moment to refocus, thinking to himself, so this is the reality of prison. He narrowly dodged a fatal blow, realizing he needs to be constantly vigilant to survive. The fight rages on, with Kei still battling multiple opponents. He and Romulo exchange a look from across the yard, a silent acknowledgement of each other's strength amidst the chaos. After taking down most of the attackers, Kei and Romulo, both bruised and bloodied, finally stand face to face. With the other inmates littering the ground around them, they prepare to fight each other, locking hands in a test of strength. In an incredible display of power, Kei and Romulo fight back-to-back, simultaneously landing devastating punches on the remaining inmates trying to attack them. Their combined force sends their opponents flying. The bald inmate who instigated the attack can only watch in utter disbelief at their overwhelming strength. Suddenly, the prison erupts in the blare of a fire alarm. The inmates stop fighting, looking around in confusion at the sudden announcement of a fire. A prison guard discovers the source of the alarm. A pile of clothes has been set on fire in a hallway. He panics, realizing the severity of the situation. While the guard frets about getting fired, Romulo looks on with a smirk, relieved that his plan worked. The fire alarm he orchestrated has finally kicked in. Taking advantage of the chaos, the guard yells for everyone to move it, warning that anyone caught lingering will face punishment. The bald leader sees his chance to escape and urges his men to run. However, Kei, filled with rage, steps up to block their path, shouting, "Like hell, I'm letting you run." The bald inmate, shocked by Kei's tenacity, turns back with a determined scowl, refusing to retreat. He mutters, "This guy, I ain't going like this." With a roar, the bald inmate lunges at Kei, shouting, "Finish this piece of shit," as he throws a powerful punch. Kei meets the attack head-on, driving his fist into the inmate's stomach while yelling, "I'm not done until I crush you." Kei lands a brutal, decisive blow, grabbing the man's face and smashing his fist into it. The bald inmate can only look on in shock and pain as Kei's cold eyes stare him down. With one final, powerful strike, Kei sends the bald inmate crashing to the ground, knocked out cold. The bald inmate lies unconscious and bleeding on the ground. Romulo looks on, stunned by the outcome. As Kei sways from exhaustion, Romulo quickly moves in to support him. With Kei leaning on him for support, Romulo urges him to move quickly. "Hurry, we'll get spotted," he says, leading them away from the scene of the fight. As they make their escape, Romulo points toward a nearby building, telling Kei, "Go to the laundry room. It's safe over there." Safely inside the laundry room, away from the chaos, Kei slumps onto a washing machine to recover his breath while Romulo stands watch. As Kei pulls out a cigarette, Romulo explains that this is Chicano territory, where they hold their meetings, making it a safe haven for them. Kei listens, understanding the significance of the location. Romulo calls out, "Yo," getting Kei's attention. As Kei pats his pockets with a cigarette in his mouth, he realizes his Zippo lighter is gone. Romulo holds out his hand, revealing Kei's lost Zippo. "You dropped this," he says. Kei is visibly shocked, not expecting such an act of kindness in the brutal prison environment. With a confident smirk, Romulo declares that returning a lost item is basic decency in Japan. Kei is taken aback by the statement, remarking, "You Japanese or something else." Now sharing a moment of calm, Kei sits up and asks the question that's been on his mind. "Hey, why'd you help me?" Romulo looks away, admitting he's not sure himself. "Who knows? I don't really get it myself," he confesses, suggesting it was a spur-of-the-moment decision. Kei cracks a small smile, calling Romulo a crazy bastard. Taking a drag from his cigarette, Romulo notes that Kei is new and he's never seen a Japanese guy in the prison before, then offers him a smoke. Kei accepts the cigarette, and the two men smoke together in silence, an unlikely bond forming between them in the quiet of the laundry room. Putting out his cigarette, Kei tells Romulo, "I owe you one, homie." Romulo dismisses the thanks, insisting, "Don't sweat it. I acted on my own." The two formally introduce themselves. "I'm Romulo. And you?" "Kei." As Romulo turns to leave, he tells Kei to take it easy. Before leaving, Romulo stops and makes an offer. "Kei, did you decide on a cellmate yet? If you want, how about rooming with me?" Kei looks at Romulo with a serious expression. "Can you at least do me that much?" he asks, adding, "I don't like being the guy who's always getting help." All right then. If that's how you feel, I'm in, Kei says, agreeing to the partnership. He reflects that Romulo is his first real friend in this prison, and from this moment on, his life would only grow more intense. The scene shifts to Kei's new cell block. The long corridors are filled with other inmates, establishing the new environment Kei has entered. Inside their new shared cell, an inmate named Juan is already lounging on the bottom bunk as if he owns the place. Kei arrives at the cell, now wearing a black shirt and accompanied by another of Romulo's men. Juan, the inmate on the bunk, looks up with a challenging expression and sarcastically asks, "Yo, how's the bunk?" Kei nonchalantly replies that the bed is a bit stiff, but not too bad. Juan, the inmate from the bunk, looks on with a confrontational glare. Juan gets up and aggressively confronts Kei, angry that a new inmate has taken the bottom bunk. "You got some nerve," he snarls. "Don't think that just because you helped Romulo, we're cool." Romulo steps in, placing a hand on Kei's shoulder and telling Juan to chill out. He calmly asserts his authority, stating, "I told him to take whichever bunk he wanted." Juan backs down with a disgruntled TCH and walks away. Romulo and Kei watch him go, with Romulo muttering, "What's this punk's problem?" Romulo explains that Juan still holds a grudge from being beaten by Kei earlier, but reassures him that Juan isn't a bad guy. He then changes the subject, asking Kei if he's found a prison job yet. Romulo explains that unlike other prison systems, in American prisons, you have to find your own work. He mentions he was offered a job in the kitchen, but turned it down flat. He warns Kei against the kitchen job, describing it as backbreaking work with a brutally early 3 a.m. start time. Romulo continues listing the undesirable jobs. Mowing the field all day in the burning California heat is out, and a furniture workshop, while it pays better with overtime, is incredibly tough. He concludes that the best jobs in the prison are working at the inmate store or in the laundry room. Romulo describes the laundry as the white-collar job of prison due to its good pay and short hours, but there's a catch. It's completely controlled by the Chicanos, so getting a spot requires a special skill. Kei reveals his unexpected special skill, sewing. Romulo is surprised, but immediately sees an opportunity, confidently telling Kei that he can secure him a laundry job with that skill. The laundry facility is a busy place, involving washing the inmates' clothes and other tasks like sewing and mending pants. Romulo brings Kei to the sewing section to demonstrate his ability to Martin Rodriguez, the Chicano in charge. Kei sits at the machine while Martin and Juan look on. Martin is immediately impressed with Kei's proficiency, commenting, "Didn't expect you to be this good. Nice work." Kei explains his past, revealing that due to being moved between various homes as a child without any money, he learned to make everything he needed on his own, including his clothes. Martin inspects the neatly folded stack of pants Kei has just finished. He's amazed by both the speed and the quality of the work, remarking, "With skills like this, no wonder American cars don't sell." Impressed, Martin officially hires Kei on the spot. "You're hired, Kei. Name's Martin Rodriguez. I'm the one in charge of the laundry. From now on, you'll be handling the sewing." Kei shakes Martin's hand, formally accepting the job. "All right, looking forward to work with you," he says. Juan, however, still looks on with a sullen expression. Martin explains the significance of the role. The prison houses 2,000 inmates, but has only 2 sewing machines. Kei is now in charge of one of them, a testament to how valuable his skill is. Martin then introduces Kei to his new partner, pointing to an old, bearded man lounging on a nearby sofa. "That's Rory. He'll be working with you." Martin gives Kei a blunt warning about Rory. He explains that Rory is a heroin addict and won't be much help, telling Kei to consider himself the only one in charge of sewing. He adds that he can't fire him simply because he's an old-timer. Martin tries to rouse the sleeping man, shouting, "Hey, Rory, this is Kei, the new guy. Try to work with him." Without even opening his eyes, Rory simply flips his middle finger in response. Martin sighs in frustration, complaining that Rory is always like this and calling him a headache. Later, Kei and Romulo relax in the prison yard, sharing a smoke. Romulo mentions that he also works in the laundry, so they'll be able to look out for each other, solidifying their new partnership. The conversation takes a more serious turn as Kei asks about Romulo's friend who was jumped. Romulo confirms that his friend survived the attack, but just barely, as a flashback shows the man covered in bandages. Romulo mentions he asked a fellow Chicano to watch his friend back as he's transferred to another wing. Kei then asks about the bearded guy who started the fight, the one named BB. Romulo reveals that BB, the man who attacked his friend, is now locked away in solitary confinement after he ran away from the fight. He explains that BB had teamed up with the Pegasus gang, but he broke their agreement and bailed. As a result, he's lost his position, and now the Chicanos want him dead. With a cold and determined look, Kei takes a drag from his cigarette and declares, "When that bastard gets out, I'll take care of him myself." Sensing the need for more information, Kei asks Romulo to explain the gang structure within the prison. Romulo begins by confirming the presence of multiple groups, including the Chicanos and Pegasus. Romulo explains that even the Chicanos are divided. He is part of the South Side crew, who rep the color blue and the number 13. Their rivals are the North Side, who wear red and use the number 14. These two Chicano factions are constantly at war. Romulo adds that the prison's power structure is further complicated by the white supremacists, the KKK, who are allied with some of the corrupt guards. After them are the black gangs, the Crips, and the Bloods. Romulo explains that these 5 major groups essentially run everything inside the prison. Romulo leans in, revealing a crucial piece of information. The gang we're beefing with the most right now is the Crips. The focus shifts to their imposing leader, Al. The scene changes to a tense meeting. Al, the leader of the Crips, stares down 2 of his kneeling men. Holding a large cross, he cryptically states, "I can see guardian spirits, you know." Al sits before his crew, holding his cross and questioning why he can't see God, adding to his mysterious and intimidating aura. He then turns his attention to a subordinate named Ian, unsettlingly revealing personal details. "Your granddaddy's happy for you too, you know? Good thing they managed to reattach the ear that Asian guy bit off." Al continues his psychological intimidation, correctly naming Ian's grandfather, Bob, and stating that he died when Ian was 12, leaving the young man speechless and terrified. Al menacingly holds his cross up to Ian's face, his strange spirit-seeing ability on full display as he seems to channel the spirit of Ian's grandfather. Another gang member watches in terrified awe, wondering how Al could possibly know about Grandpa Bob, a secret known only to him and his brother Ian. Al suddenly grabs Ian's head, mockingly asking if he was a real grandpa's boy, before apologizing with a sadistic grin, fully demonstrating his dominance over his crew. Ian is completely dominated by Al's display. Having established his power, Al gets to the real reason for the meeting. "I heard you tried to use my Crips to kill that Asian guy." Al leans forward, his face a mask of fury as he roars the gang's law. Rule number 3. He forces Ian to recite the rule. "Handle your own shit." Al confirms the answer with a booming yes. Ian fearfully completes the rule. To avoid causing trouble, Al gets in his face, demanding to know why. Al grabs Ian's head again, reinforcing his lesson with a powerful grip. "In this prison, we have to keep peace and order," he bellows. "Obey the rules." With Ian thoroughly disciplined, Al stands tall, a terrifying and commanding figure embodying the absolute authority of his gang. He kisses his cross, declaring, "That's the law of the Crips." The narrator reintroduces him as Al, the powerful leader of the black gang, the Crips. Back in the yard, time is up, and the inmates head back inside. Kei and Romulo walk with the crowd, but their minds are elsewhere. Kei reflects on the confrontation he just witnessed, knowing that a showdown between him and Al is now inevitable.